Right, welcome along to Relationship with Food Month. I'm chatting with Susannah Alexander. Susannah, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi everyone. So I am a size-friendly nutritional therapist. I'm currently based in the Scottish Highlands, and my speciality is in nutrition for mental health. So I help people to sleep better and manage their emotional health better, and I run healthy cookery clubs for children.
Awesome. So today we're looking at the relationship with food. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to tackle this quite large topic?
It's a huge topic, isn't it? And I think so many people have suffered from emotional eating at one stage or another in their lives. And what I see when I come into the groups, I pop into the group quite a lot, and I look at what people are talking about. And people are talking about how this phenomena of emotional eating has escalated during perimenopause.
Yeah.
And in a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about why that might be, what might be actually going on in your body that promotes that. But firstly, I just want to reassure people that, very often people say emotional eating like it's a really bad thing or it's really deviant or something. And actually, it's a really natural thing. And that's both psychologically and physiologically true. So, if you go back to when you were a baby or when you had a baby, or maybe some of you still have babies, what do we do when our baby cries? We give them a bottle or we put them on our breast and it settles them. And is that because they're actually hungry? Probably not, because you've probably come across a baby that just takes one mouthful and that's it. So there's something very comforting about having stuff in our mouths. How many of you chew gum, right? It's that having a thing in your mouth. But it's also because when you're a baby, the actual amino acids, the actual proteins in the milk soothe you. And so we learn that eating is soothing. So from our earliest days, we're conditioned to see food as comfort. And there's a physiological thing that's happening that makes food be comforting. It works for us. And then when we're kids and something bad happens, like you fall over and you graze your knee, what happens? Your mum gives you a sweetie.
Yep. Or
And why does that work?
On the flip side, you get good test results and you have a treat of food, and yeah, the emotional connection is there from very, very young.
Exactly. And it works physiologically. It's not just some kind of placebo. So, when you have a sore tummy and they say to you, rub your tummy, it's that kind of principle that what we do is we use one stimulus to override another stimulus.
Yeah.
And this is an actual neurological principle. You study it at university when you study neurology. It's not some kind of woo-woo thing. It actually works. Some of you have been in for your COVID vaccine. You'll notice that the person talks to you I haven't had mine yet, but when I do, they talk to you, when they're doing something unpleasant to take your mind off it. So there's this whole principle of talk anesthesia and this whole principle of using one stimulus to override another. And we can do that with food when we're very young because our problems aren't that big.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when we're an adult, we think we can still do that, but our problems are really a bit bigger.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head just now. A lot of us think that somehow by eating emotionally we're somehow bad, and that we should have willpower and that we should be able to stop ourselves doing this, but it's so primal, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you get into a battle between willpower and hormones, the hormones always win, always. So don't get into that battle because it just wastes so much energy.
Absolutely. So why
that's
sorry, carry on.
Go on. So that's one thing to say is if you emotionally eat sometimes, we all do it and it's normal and you don't have to feel bad about it. In fact, if you can let go of the badness and the guilt, that sometimes stops the downward spiral. However, maybe it's more than you'd like, so we have to talk. I think we have to sort of distinguish a little bit between just eating something nice and emotional eating, because sometimes people, I think, mix up the two a bit. And every time they have an ice cream, they go, oh, it's emotional eating. Oh, it's terrible. Actually, it's just enjoying something nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to the difference. When you enjoy something nice, you enjoy it. When you emotionally eat, you probably don't even notice what you're eating. You're not enjoying it. And you don't feel satisfied. because the emotional eating doesn't fix the problem in the way it would have done when you were a child, because as I said, your problems are so much bigger. I mean, when I look at what people are going through in this group, and I look at what they're having to cope with every day, the things that are going on are huge, massive. And of course you need an outlet.
Yeah.
And it's partly to do with the stress that we're experiencing at this particular time of life. We're experiencing caring, we're experiencing stressful jobs, we're experiencing the pandemic, we're experiencing our symptoms, we're experiencing all the prejudice that women experience. And we think that we don't need anything to get out of that. Cut yourself a bit of slack, ladies.
Absolutely. And the fact that you've mentioned the pandemic, I've seen a lot of memes on social media and stuff of people saying, oh, time to shift the pandemic pounds or whatever. And you just think, do you know what? If the worst thing that has happened in a year of lockdowns is that I've gained a few pounds and that my trousers fit slightly differently, I'm gonna go with that, because actually it's been a really weird time. It's been a stressful time for everyone. It's been a difficult time for everyone. And if our response has simply been to eat a bit differently, I don't see that that's a bad thing, really.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think of all the other destructive things that people can do to cope,
exactly,
eating isn't actually a destructive thing. And let's just, while we're on the subject, very quickly put this whole lockdown weight thing into context. People were talking about lockdown weight before they even knew people could gain weight. So they're talking about it back in April 2020, before anyone had even a chance to gain weight. And what actually happened when you look at the statistics, 50% of people gained weight in lockdown, 50% of people didn't. Well, you know what? In any given year, either you're going to gain weight or you're not.
Exactly. And, in the first lockdown, certainly here in England, so many people were exercising more than they ever usually had done, that it makes sense that some people, absolutely, turned to emotional eating or didn't exercise as much, but some people exercised way more than they ever used to. And, to try to sort of guilt everybody into thinking that they must now address something that was just a natural reaction to a difficult time is, well, don't get me started on the diet rant.
well, indeed. And it's also possible that if people were exercising more, they gained muscle mass.
Yeah, or they just ate more because they were hungrier.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk a lot about eating too much, don't we? Well, what do we mean by too much? What we're doing is eating to satisfy our hunger. And again, eating to satisfy your hunger, is normal and natural. I think what we mean by emotional eating is where we're not hungry, we don't need food. Food doesn't make us feel better, but we're just eating it just because.
Absolutely. And we've all done it. I mean, you have a bad day at work, or you have an argument with somebody or whatever, and you just think, oh, I'm just going to have some chocolate because that'll help. And actually, if we catch ourselves and pause in that moment and think, is the chocolate going to help, or actually does my body, do these emotions need something different? That's how we can start to break the cycle, not by beating ourselves up around it.
Exactly. Emotional eating, I'll talk about the biology in a minute, but this brings me on to another thing I was going to say, which is that emotional eating is always either or both a lack or a need. So you lack something and you need something. And, sometimes that something is chocolate biscuits, but mostly it isn't. Mostly it's something else, So it really does help to pause in that moment, as you say, and say, just ask yourself these two questions. What am I lacking and what do I need? Because maybe what you need is a hug.
Yeah. Maybe what you need is a hug. Maybe what you need is to call a friend. Maybe what you need is a walk. Maybe, but giving yourself that space to listen to your body and let it tell you, rather than just diving into the biscuit tin and then beating yourself. If your body needs the biscuits, crack on and eat the biscuits. Absolutely, 100%. And if you've done the checklist of what do I need, and you decide that what you actually need is too big to delve into right now, for example, crack on and eat the biscuits or the ice cream. It's fine.
Absolutely. And maybe write down what you're lacking and needing, because maybe it's something that isn't, because as I've said, our problems are big. So maybe a hug isn't enough, or maybe it's enough in the moment. But, you know, if, I don't know, if you're, you know, if you're, I was talking to a lady today, you know, she's caring for her mother. She's trying to start her business again. She's got teenage children. I mean, the pressure is just intense. A hug's nice, but it's not going to fix it. So you may need to write it down so that you can later on build a strategy for how you're going to tackle that, because all the ice cream in the world is not going to solve that one.
No, it really
Much as we'd like it to.
But it can make you feel slightly better in the moment of eating the ice cream, and that's okay.
Because you need to get yourself to that place where you can tackle the big thing. And if by doing the small thing, you can then tackle the big thing, that's good. So you could see having the ice cream as a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. It's a means to get you to the place where you can then work on the thing that you actually need to work on. But if you're in such a bad mental place that you can't even, you know, cope with working on that thing, it's never going to get any better.
No, absolutely. And this is such a big thing, you know, identifying emotional eating, acknowledging that you're doing it, acknowledging that it isn't about the food, is such a big step to just taking back control over your relationship with food, isn't it?
Absolutely. But I do want to talk a little bit about the biology of it, because I know a lot of the ladies in the group are saying, you know, why is it that at this time of life, I'm particularly bothered by emotional eating? And again, you know, if you're doing it, it doesn't bother you, great. But I know that some people are finding it bothersome that they're doing it quite so much. And I think it is, you know, we've talked about emotions, and that's super, super important. But I think it's nice to talk about biology as well, because then you understand, you know, it's not just that I'm an emotional sort of load of emotions floating around. There is actually some biology behind this. And maybe as well as addressing the emotional stuff, which is really important, I can look at the biology as well. So what happens when we get older is that we break down a protein that we eat called tryptophan more quickly, because the enzyme in our body that degrades it upregulates. So why is this important? What it means, so you know, you may not have heard of tryptophan, but tryptophan is the thing that we need, the building block, one of the building blocks to produce serotonin, which you will have heard of. And emotional eating can be an indicator of low serotonin. And especially if you also experience low mood, high stress, or anxiety. These are all indicators that you could have low serotonin. By the way, this is why, you know, a lot of the ladies on here get very frustrated because they go to the doctors and they say, I'm in perimenopause, and the doctor says, here, have some antidepressants. They think they're being fobbed off. And sometimes they are, but you're not necessarily being fobbed off. It could actually be that a lot of your symptoms are down to low serotonin. So it could be that antidepressants will help you. And it could also be that adding healthy eating, well, I'm sure you all eat healthy anyway, but doing a few more things with your eating could help you to support serotonin production. So what do we need to eat to be able to do this? Well, first of all, we need to eat tryptophan. So tryptophan, where's it found? It's found in primarily chicken and turkey, but also eggs. And if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you can find it in legumes and beans. I've just got a huge pile of notes here. So I'm just going to see if I've missed anything for the vegetarians. Apples and bananas and peaches and avocados are great. Spinach, broccoli, asparagus, onions, whole grains, all those things will have some tryptophan in them. Also, make sure you've got enough vitamin D. We talk about vitamin D loads in the group, don't we? And I've actually got my lemon melt here. This is my vitamin D. Hang on, no, I'll hide the product label. We don't want to do products. I'm not promoting products. But these are my little lemon things. There you go. There's Emily's. And just make sure that you're getting enough. Why? Because we produce serotonin both in the gut and in the brain. We don't want to produce it in the gut, so we want to produce it in the gut, but it doesn't actually travel to the brain when we do that, so we need to make it directly in the brain, and that's what vitamin D enables us to do. Okay, so then methylfolate which is the natural form of folic acid that we find in leafy greens. Magnesium, we talk about loads. I'm not going to talk about it because we talk about it in the group so much. Zinc in things like eggs and fish, and vitamin B6. So those things are the kind of building blocks that we need to produce serotonin. So if you are emotionally eating, as well as doing the emotional stuff, which is very, very important, it might be worth looking at those things too.
So what I'm taking from that, as you know, I like to take this, I'm hearing that if I eat a Florentine pizza, which has got spinach and eggs on it, that's going to be good. And then if I have a banana split, that's going to be good.
So I don't like to use the words good and bad. I think it's
I meant just simply good for serotonin.
For serotonin, yeah. So there are so many ways we can do this, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And those aren't awkward foods. They're not weird foods. They're everyday staple foods. Most people have, unless you're vegan, obviously, but most people have eggs in the house most of the time. Yeah. Spinach is very easy to get hold of. Broccoli, bananas. Most people like bananas or apples, or indeed both. I mean, so it's not like we're saying, oh, you're going to have to seek out the lesser spotted grey toe or something.
No. And I quite like weird food sometimes, but I think for, most people every day, and again, we were saying about the pressure that we're under at the moment, you don't want to have to go hunting in sort of some bizarre little, in Inverness, we have a little health shop in a side street. I mean, it's the most fantastic shop, but it's like going to Diagon Alley,
It's the same. We have a wonderful little health shop, but yeah, you do have to kind of go and peruse around, and but it's wonderful that we can support our serotonin with just everyday foods. That's just such a positive, which, as you say, that coupled with digging into the emotions when you're ready can really help to just get your eating back onto a sort of a way that feels like you're back in control of it, I guess.
Exactly. And my clinical supervisor taught me something when I was in college, which you can tell I talk very fast, I talk a lot, my mind's always going 1,000 to the dozen. I find it very hard to disconnect and to reconnect my mind and my body. And so when I emotionally eat, I'm not thinking about anything at all apart from the biscuit. And when I used to get like this in clinic, and I would be overwhelmed with people's case notes, and my supervisor would just say to me, you know what, just say to yourself, I pause and I breathe. Yeah. And it just gives you a little bit of headspace to go to ask the next question, which is, what do I lack? What do I need?
Yeah.
So just keep that in your head. It's 1, 2, I pause and I breathe. It's 5 words. Keep those 5 words in your head. And when you feel the urge, do I pause and I breathe. What do I want? What do I lack? What do I need? And you know what? If what I really need in this moment is ice cream, then what I really need in this moment is ice cream.
Absolutely. And I think this is such an important thing with the whole relationship with food, with food thing, is that no foods are naughty or bad. Some of them will make you feel better in nourishment ways. Some of them make you feel better in emotional ways. Some of them will make you not feel very good, but that doesn't make them a judgment on your character because you've eaten them.
Yeah, you know what? There is no virtue in none of this is about virtue. There is no morality in what you eat, and there is no morality in your food. What I always say is, did your food go and mug a little old lady before you ate it? No, then it's not bad food.
And I say such a similar thing. I say, so have you been, you're saying that you've been bad by having eaten this. Did you murder somebody? No, then you haven't been bad. You just ate some food. And it's the same analogy, isn't it? And it's
exactly. And sometimes I think that all the guilt that we have around food and all the sort of feelings that we have around food and the way that we associate with our moral compass is half of the problem. And if we can take that away from ourselves, then it just removes this huge burden that we don't need and that isn't serving us. Because how is that guilt serving you? It's not.
And that guilt manifests as emotion and gets you back into the spiral of emotional eating. Imagine that. And actually, just by simply removing the guilt around food, a lot of those foods lose their power over you.
Exactly. You know, that there's so much well, anecdotal evidence, but also research evidence coming out about intuitive eating now, about how the moment that you take away that guilt around food, and the moment that you say, listen to your body and eat the foods that your body wants at that time, it just completely changes your relationship with food. And, you know, there are people who would just normally just mindlessly eat a whole chocolate bar. And they go, oh, I bought a chocolate bar and I didn't eat it for days. And it wasn't because I was avoiding it. I just didn't need it anymore.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, as somebody who has done exactly that transition from the sort of diety world into kind of much more intuitive eating, it can be really frustrating because you buy a piece of cake thinking, oh, I'll really enjoy that later. And then later comes and you go, I don't want cake. Damn it. Maybe I want cake tomorrow. And the next day, oh, I still... But then when you do want the cake, oh man, it tastes so good because it's the thing that you want.
Exactly. And, you know, every food that you like is a pleasure. So why not make it a pleasure?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect point to say thank you very much, Susannah. I think
Thank you for having me.
I love that you've given us the sort of the biology behind it as well, rather than just the emotional side. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've loved it.